Welcome into the Illini Inquirer podcast. It is time to catch up with Mike LaTulip as Illinois starts 3-0, but has some struggles with Oakland, dispatching them 66-54. We'll talk about some offensive struggles, but some defensive encouragement, and we'll get you ready for a huge game against number 2 Alabama next week as the schedule gets real. Mike LaTulip, how are you, man?
I'm doing well. We're getting into the thick of it now, which is great. Tonight's insane. Tonight is just an insane slate of games, so I think I know where I'll be.
Alabama, their schedule, man. The fact that they're at Purdue tonight, we're recording this on Friday morning. It is insane what they have put together with their schedule. For people who haven't seen it, I mentioned on the last one with Piper. But they have Purdue on the road, Illinois mostly at home, semi-home, Houston neutral, Rutgers neutral, Notre Dame neutral, at North Carolina, home against Creighton. I respect the hell out of it, Mike.
Yeah, I mean, look, you look at the metrics, and you either want to play really good teams and win or lose close, or you want to play really bad teams and beat the crap out of them. So that's what the metrics tend to favor over the years, and Nate Oates certainly scheduled accordingly.
Yeah, it's kind of the metrics way. Both him and Underwood believe in the metrics in the part of the game, but they also do with the schedule, and certainly what Brad Underwood is doing. But before we dive too much into Alabama, let's talk about this ugly win over Oakland. It is a win. Never felt like Illinois really was in danger to lose because Oakland was missing all those shots. But still, there was more struggles here, and they struggled against Oakland. What led to it, Mike? What led to kind of after two pretty wins, this one being a little uglier?
Yeah, we'll get into the zone that Oakland runs, but it's a good lesson, I think, for a young group. I think you're not going to average 101 points a night for the season. Teams are going to muck it up. Teams are going to try to take away your strengths. Teams are going to get you second guessing. And in this game in particular, and especially on the offensive end, there was a lot of overthinking. There was a lot of overpassing, I thought, at times. And it was just really similar to last year's matchup with them, where it was ugly. It was a 60-something to 50-something. And now that you have a game like this on film, how do you respond when teams try to take away your rhythm? Who can you trust, right? That's a big component of this too. So I thought the defense was actually really encouraging. Now, granted, Oakland was one of the worst offensive teams in the country coming into that game, but how bad would things have been defensively if they came out there and hung 75 or 80 on your head? There'd be some real questions being asked. So you at least kept them in check in that regard. But yeah, we'll get into the zone and whatnot. But you move to 3-0. These ugly games in non-conference, they're going to happen. They happen every year, it feels like, for every team. I mean, we're going to get into Bama. They've squeaked by. Now, they've played some really good mid-majors, but they squeaked by a couple of those teams as well. So it's happening across the country.
Does this need to happen for every team? Like, is this inevitable for every team?
I'm never a big believer. It's like when a team loses, it's like, man, they needed that loss. I mean, I don't ever think you need a loss. I think it's just how you recalibrate after a win like this, what your preparation is too. I think that's the big thing for young guys and for a young team. It's not just, hey, we're playing Oakland and they zone, right? Because it's a different zone. And if you're the type of basketball player that's really curious outside of whatever film you're being showed by the staff, are you getting in extra hours watching the Boise State game? Hey, how did they attack them? How can I go out there and prepare myself to go play free of mind, because I know what the plan is and I know how I want to attack it. And, part of that's obviously on the staff, but also part of it's on the players to just say, okay, how much am I obsessed with this? And the older guys tend to kind of gravitate more that way. And so for a younger group, can that be instilled in guys like that? I think these are great kids, high character kids that really, really love the game. I mean, Brad's talked about it, just these guys are junkies, which is a great start. So now it's like that preparation element to eliminate the overthinking when you get on the court.
All right. So how much credit do we have to give Oakland zone? Or how much of this was just Illinois decision-making? Because I thought the decision-making at points late in that first half especially were really worrisome. So how did that zone impact Kasparas and the rest of the lineup?
Okay, you're going to have to give me probably a couple minutes here.
Go for it.
Because I want to explain. We hear about this zone all the time. Stephen Bardo talked about it on the broadcast. It's an amoeba-like zone. But what are they doing, right? Like, what are they trying to accomplish? What is the alignment? That's what I want to break down for you real quick. And then I want to tell you how Illinois exploited it in some areas and how Oakland kind of maintained having the upper hand defensively for, portions of the night. So that zone, the reason why it's difficult to play against is because throughout the course of a possession, it takes on different life forms, right? So it starts in really like a 1-1-3. So you have the guy up top is just guarding the guy bringing the ball up the floor. Okay, it's not like a 1-3-1 where he stands there and angles his feet, wants the ball passed over the top to the other side. It is straight man-to-man for that top guy guarding the ball. You have the second guy who's in the 1-1 behind him, taking away anything in the high post, essentially man-to-man in the high post. And if they come up and set a ball screen, it's man-to-man, they switch. That's kind of like the man element of it, although it's a zone to start, right? It's a 1-1-3 to start. Now you have the wings that have responsibilities with their backs to the sideline. Listen to that again, backs to the sideline. So now you have guys guarding areas, which are zone principles. Okay, you have guys in the corner and you have a guy maybe up on the wing, and this guy can be in an area guarding both. Same thing on the other wing. Low man is kind of air traffic control, and he'll shoot out to the corner if they throw a pass to the corner. If they throw a pass to the corner, they have 2-3 principles now. So you see it's 1-1-3 to start, or you could argue maybe 1-3-1 just by the alignment. But when it gets to the corner, it's 2-3. And then if you want to throw to the ball to the high post, what they do is they fan out. So ball goes in the high post. The guy that they call, the eraser, the stopper in the middle, he guards the high post, and the rest of them basically get into man out on the wing and into the corners. So you're going through a possession and you're like, okay, it's 1-3-1 or it's 1-1-3 or it's 2-3. Okay, now they're kind of in man. You can't play that game. The diagnosing game, real time, that's going to slow down your cuts. That's going to slow down your attacks because you're questioning what's going on. You need to just be able to free yourself up to play, right? And what's the strategy? Are we just going man? I thought what they did in the beginning of the game was great because they sent Kasparas through on a shallow cut. Okay, move the defense, shallow cut to the top of the key or really into the slot, catch it. Trey White wraps underneath the baseline up to the top of the key and comes and sets a quick ball screen. They put 2 on the ball, gets a little pocket passing there, Trey White, and Trey White doesn't stop for a floater. He gets all the way to the basket and finishes for a layup. Too many times they were stopping short for floaters, bailing them out, and too many times off the ball, right? Like there's something that happens with zone where all of a sudden there's like this hot lava inside the arc. And I thought I've been really impressed with Ben Humrickhouse to start the season. I thought he was a major culprit on whatever that was, Wednesday night, of just, if you're watching the podcast, I'm putting my hand straight up in the corner and just asking for the ball. Just put my hands up. Hey, pass me the ball. When really you got a guy whose back is to the sideline and he's your responsibility. You can't just think zone in your head. You still got to think man principles. And if you had a guy that was guarding you who fully turned his back to you, Jeremy, what would you do?
Cut.
I'd back cut. Yeah. I'd cut to the basket. And if you cut to the basket, again, I've said this for years, and you know this, you may not get the ball, but it takes them out of what they want to do because now that wing guy has to make a decision. Now that low guy has to make a decision. Are you taking him? Am I taking him? Who's going to take the guy in the middle? If Tomislav is sealing the big man that's low, now what do you do? So when you come in there and you say, okay, we're going to put 2 guys up top, 1 guy in the high post, 2 guys in the corner, that's what they want. Because now they can just do their alignment. 2 wings with their back to the sideline, low man down, guy in the high post, and then a guy guarding the top of the key. So that was where they ran into trouble, is they had a guy in the high post, so they could just do their 1-1, and then no cutting off the ball. And when they got real confusion was when they did cut and when they did have action or at least cycled guys through the middle instead of planting guys in the middle. So, again, I thought they got stuck in diagnosing mode for a lot of the night. I thought Kasparas got stuck in diagnosing mode for most of the night, and that was kind of the product and why they didn't have a great showing offensively. I apologize.
No, it's great.
For that being probably 4 minutes of Oakland zone talk.
No, it's great because that's what makes it confusing. I don't know how many teams. I don't know how much you actually learn from this, Mike. Is how many times you're going to have to deal with stuff like this, but it is maybe it's not the same kind of defense, but if somebody throws something different at you, what can they take away from this?
They won't face a zone like that the rest of the year, but what
Right.
they will face likely is some team throughout the season, because these teams are starting to do it now, which I'm not the biggest fan of. It's, hey, show 2-3 zone or 3-2, whatever it may be, and then the second the ball goes in the high post, or when the guy low decides to call it out at 15 seconds on the shot clock, hey, we're just going man. Match up, we're going man. And then now you're running zone offense against man. When really, like, it's a good lesson because it says, okay, what's our plan? If they're going to end the possession in man, let's just run man offense. Baylor and Arkansas the other night, that's what Scott Drew, that was a Scott Drew, John Calipari chess match that was going on. It was Drew was zone, and then he went zone to man. Cal was still running zone stuff. Then Cal went to man stuff. And then, Drew went back to man on some possessions. So there's that give and a take. But the point is, like, when you're facing a zone, there's a power struggle that happens. And the power struggle is we are in a zone alignment that is forcing you to have to do something. Your offense is dictated based on what we're doing. And I thought throughout the course of the night, Illinois let them dictate that end of the floor. Instead of like, hey, we're going to cut hard. We're going to find these creases in the zone. We're going to create advantages. And then from there, like, you regain the upper hand in that power struggle. So it's a good lesson to say, hey, no matter what these defenses are throwing at us, how can we regain the upper hand? How can we get the defense on their heels as opposed to us being on our heels all night? I thought that was a big story throughout the course of the night, because you could see the disparity between what were the good possessions for Illinois and what were the bad possessions for Illinois. It was clear as day. And for those of you that'll stick around for the film, there's a lot of that. So,
and Mike, one of the stats that stood out most to me, I think Illinois ended up with 17 free throw attempts when they had been getting to the free throw line so much. Part of that probably has to do with zone, but part of it, I think, is settling for those floaters and runners. Like, I think Will Riley got caught into that Kylin Boswell times. Yeah. Now Tomislav, that was there all night. We'll get into him in a little bit, but what is it about a zone, or what is it about those? Why did they settle for those floaters and runners?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a mental game, because when the team's in a zone, there's a chance for you to have open shots for sure, especially in the middle of the zone. If you attack from the top of the key, and if they're in, let's say, like a 2-3, now you got three guys low, you get past that first, line of defense, you're going to have open space. But it's as a player understanding, okay, does open space mean pull up, or does open space mean to continue to attack? And that's where I thought they ran into issues on Wednesday night was, and Will, it's a strength thing, right? Because he's trying to use his left hand to get downhill. He's got two defenders collapsing on him. He's not at the point where he can just like bounce guys off of him and continue with his dribble downhill. He's kind of wired at this point to where, like, when he sees collapsing like that, he picks it up and goes into that floater. Kylan had a situation where he caught the ball in the left slot. He had a great, crease to drive, and he drove it, and he had probably I'll say like a 6-foot radius of space around him. And instead of continuing to get downhill, I mean, that's a dude that's built like a halfback.
Right.
I mean, and we'll get to Kylan later, but like, that was an opportunity for him to say, hey, can I get 2 more dribbles into the paint? And maybe that pulls in this weak side defender. I got Humrickhouse for a 3, or maybe on Humrickhouse back cuts and can get a dunk. Or Tomislav is occupying this guy here. I can throw it back to Trey White. Like, that's all stuff that they're going to work out, and stuff that's good to put on film, because I think as an offense, if you want to really operate at a high level, eliminating a lot of those mid-range shots, I think is, because it's exactly what you want to force defensively.
Yeah, and it's what Illinois tries to force defensively, and it's what they don't want to shoot. But they shot a lot of those mid-range twos in this game. I know you guys have heard me talk about Home Field Apparel a lot, but there's a reason. I have some of these shirts from Home Field Apparel, and they are a premium collegiate apparel brand based in Indianapolis. And what I love about them is they're focused on creating incredibly comfortable, officially licensed apparel with vintage college designs. So go to homefieldapparel.com and check out their Illini gear. The Flying Illini t-shirt, I love. If they have any bomber jackets, go check those out. But you see all of these vintage designs that are great. So they kind of stand out in a crowd. but also these are comfortable, well-fitting. They're not the boxy kind of ones you get at the random department store. No, these are well-fitted, comfortable t-shirts and apparel. So go check it out at homefieldapparel.com. Go to the drag down menu, click on Illini, and you'll see all of these great shirts, including Orange Crush, old school Fighting Illini basketball shirts, the Flying Illini t-shirt with the great winged logo, Script Illini gear, including t-shirts, hoodies, an orange ringer tee, the 2004-05 Illinois basketball shirts so you can relive those glory days, but also they have great hoodies, great crew necks, great Illini football gear, including the 80s Illini helmet on there. If you're an old school sweatshirt guy, they got those. If you're a quarter zip guy, they got those. If you want a women's tank there with the Script Illini, they got that. So go to homefieldapparel.com to check out all the great gear they have there. If you're not an Illini fan, they have more than 180 plus growing list of schools. So you can check out all the gear from all over the country. And right now, use code Illini24 for 15% off at homefieldapparel.com. That's Illini24 for 15% off all the gear at homefieldapparel.com. All right, Tomislav Ivisic, he's shown a lot of skill, Mike, as we expected. He's dominated these lower level opponents, almost 18 points per game. So how much of this is the competition ramps up, how much of what Evasic is doing translates against those top tier opponents? And what has he just shown you so far?
Yeah, I mean, I think you saw it with Dane. He was the mid-major killer.
I think that's why we ask this now, right? With these big men.
Yeah, no, for sure. But I think the distinction that has to be made is that I don't feel like Tomislav is getting the production he's getting just from like brute strength.
Correct. Yeah.
It doesn't feel that way. It feels like it's within the flow of the offense. It's touch shots. It's stuff that is going to be there. And luckily, like for him, that little touch shot from 6, 7 feet, 8 feet, I don't really consider that to be like he's so good at it. I don't consider it to be like, hey, bad mid-range shot. Like that's a good shot for him. I did like the fact that at times too, he could have done it and then just opted for I'm 7-1, back you down, go and get a layup. That was great. But it is translatable to me because I still think that his skill is going to pop even more when he plays higher level opponents. And part of that is going to be his passing, and part of that is going to be his shooting. I know he's 3 for 12 right now from 3, but he's going to have more opportunities to step out and to shoot those. I mean, he's been in the paint a lot because that's where their advantage is. And I think moving forward, there's going to be an advantage for him down there depending on the opponent night in, night out. Can they get to the point where he's commanding doubles? That's the real question. Northwestern's going to double regardless, but can he command that from certain teams? Because now, again, that passing ability is really unlocked. But I like what they're doing when he is in man-to-man or when defenses are in man-to-man. They're putting him in that slot, meaning kind of up by the wing, free throw line, extended-ish. And he's great because you can skip pass and he can go right into a dribble handoff, pick and pop. He'll get some corner threes this year. He got 2 against Ole Miss. All that's on the table for him. And again, like it's just a piece that they haven't had.
Yeah.
Like this over the years. So it'll be fun to see how Brad and Tyler and that staff use him.
Well, and I can see like some of these guys, we've mentioned this over and over again, Mike, but it's worth repeating. Like I can see where, defensively he might not be all Big Ten, but you can just see the impact he makes. Like he changes shots at the rim. He's got presence. He's active with his hands. I think he ended up with 4 steals. I thought Kylan deserved credit for some of those, but like he's active with his hands. Like you can see, like he just makes an overall impact and is one of the most valuable guys on this team.
Yeah, he is. And the defensive impact, you talked about it. After the Ole Miss game, I talked about that. Man, I was really impressed with Tomislav's ability when guys drive. He has just innate ability to understand, hey, is this going to be a pocket pass, bounce pass, or are you going to try to lob this over my head? And that's where he got at least 2 of his steals the other night. And so, yeah, I've been really, really impressed with him. I think you're seeing why I was so excited about him when I watched this film and kind of was like, oh my God, they're going to be able to get this guy over here and get him eligible and have him be a really key piece. That's huge. And he's seen, like you've seen, they can play in different ways with him. He doesn't need, I know he's whatever he is right now, 16, 17 a game, but he doesn't need to be that for him to have an impact. And that's why we talk about his instincts and his, the intangible stuff that he does on the defensive end. That's going to go a long way. The post defense is going to be better than it was last year just because he has more size. I want to see how well he rebounds outside of his range against a team like Alabama. That's going to be, because I think his athleticism is probably going to be like neutralized a little bit. So can he really make an impact with his his headiness and his ability to have the skill that he has at 7'1"?
You and I have talked a lot about how, the money ball aspect now of college basketball. I think his value, bang for the buck, is going to be really high on this team for what they're getting for him. Kylin Boswell, a huge addition to this team. Feels like he's still finding his way offensively. Did hit some big shots, got to the free throw line late, but hit that big three at the end of the game. But defensively, Mike, like, you are seeing what Kylin Boswell can do. So what do you make of Kylin Boswell and what we've seen through 3 games and what you expect moving forward from him?
Yeah, I think Kylan, again, I think he's trying to find his way a little bit, probably more offensively. Defensively, I think he's been outstanding. I mean, he's been not just all Big Ten defense level, like he's been nationally good. And so that's great to see, because when you look at Illinois' schedule, I mean, even just go throughout the year, right? You got Mark Sears, you got Braden Smith, you got Boogie Flan, you got Sakai Ziegler, you got Miles Rice. Think about night in and night out having a guy that's like, that's your matchup. That's such a luxury to have. And they had it with Trent Frazier. Every night he's putting you through the gauntlet. He's fighting through every screen. He's getting Indy on the ball. I think Draven possesses some of that too. I think Kasparas has been almost underrated on that end.
Better than expected. Him and Will, feels like.
Yeah, and Will too. But for Kylan, look, he's 25% from the field and he's 25% from 3. And the good news, I think, for this Illinois team is that if water ends up finding its level, which I expect it to, it's going to come in some big games here coming up. And this is a guy that's played in big games. It's been in the NCAA tournament, that's advanced in the NCAA tournament. So I don't worry about Kylan just from a basketball standpoint. We'll go through the film. The Oakland stuff there's some timidness offensively, and that's mainly just with cuts. Like, instead of like cutting hard, it's kind of like, hey, I'm creeping in this way, and so I think that's an area that I think he can improve. But being there live against whoever the second game was against, I was there live against, what was Eastern, and then they played why am I forgetting this?
Why am I forgetting it?
They played
another OVC team. Come on, we can figure this out. SIUE.
SIUE. I apologize, SIUE. But being there live for that and seeing like his leadership and seeing how this is a guy that, although the numbers aren't where he wants to be offensively, I don't see that seeping into his game. I don't see him like really pressing. There was one shot at the end of the half in the first half against Oakland. 28 on the clock. You don't have a 2-for-1 situation, and you don't have rebounding underneath the basket. It was only Will Riley and 2 guys. Probably not the time to pull up for 3. But other than that, like, I don't see him pressing offensively. There's a calmness about him. And just, again, what he's done defensively, I think, has been outstanding. That needs to continue for him for sure.
I want to get back to the offensive side of the ball with him and Kasparas here in a second. But defensively, again, I know the level of opponent, Mike. But this team has played a little bit better than I thought defensively. Like, the care level seems a little bit higher to me. And maybe the Ole Miss exhibition was kind of the wake-up call that they needed. But as you said, like, Kasparas, like, there's just a little bit more there than I thought there would be. Maybe that changes as you go up against an Alabama. But I do feel like, especially on the ball, that they have a little bite to them with Dre and Kylan for sure.
High IQ players make good defenders because you have an understanding of the geometry of the court. You have an understanding of positioning. You have an understanding of tendencies. And I think that's what you're seeing. In addition to, just Kylan and Draven and Kasparas being really good on the ball, I think you have guys off the ball too that just kind of understand where to be, what's good position, what's bad positioning. And two, like, watching Duke the other night, this is something that stuck out to me. And I think in a way, this Illinois team possesses a little bit of it. They can definitely possess more of it moving forward. But when people talk about positional size, You want to play like you have it offensively and play like you don't have it defensively. Meaning, like, there's got to be, I know we're 6'6" across the board, or, Kylan's 6'2", whatever he is, but we're 6'6" plus everywhere else. You can't play like it. Like, you still got to play like you're the 5'10" guy running around that's scrapping, that's fighting through screens, that's got like a survival element to playing defensively. And I think you're seeing a little bit of that with this group. And that's what makes really good defensive teams, because you already have this advantage with the size that you have and the length that you have. Now you bake in some of the effort stuff, some of the headiness and the IQ that they possess on that end. And you're certainly, like, I don't know if they can be like a top 10 defense in the country, but certainly better than 100th or whatever they were last year. And part of that starts with the backcourt. Like, I think this is a better defensive backcourt than it was last year. And the defense at the point of attack, that disrupts spacing for the other team, how they get into their stuff, where they get into their stuff, and gives you a little bit more margin for error on that end. So I think that's all positive. And I think again, with a young group, with a new group, they should just continue to see an upward trend on that end.
All right, Kylan's still finding his way offensively. You also have Kasparas, who 20 assists to 5 turnovers through the first couple of games. Pretty dang good. Obviously, he had the turnovers the other night, but he's only got 7 shot attempts. He's getting to the free throw line a lot, but he's only got 7 shot attempts. So I'm interested, Mike, to watch these two playing together, how it evolves, because it reminds me a little bit, and maybe this isn't a perfect analogy, but it reminds me a little bit of Trent and Io trying to figure out how to play together offensively, what their roles are together. Just what do you see with those two offensively, and how that can evolve moving forward? Because I would imagine at some point, Kasparas maybe needs to be a little bit more aggressive finding his own scoring, because he can get to the free throw line and get some easy buckets, when that's kind of the thing that I feel like this offense might be missing at times.
Yeah, you talk about, like, at some point he's got to be more aggressive. Like, he's got to be more aggressive now.
Yeah.
Like, right now. And I thought the Oakland game, I talked about being stuck in diagnosing mode. There was a lot of that with him, a lot of predetermining of reads, of gaps that he wanted to drive. And, like, I think the reason why I watched him. I get it was against U18, U17, whatever it was. But, dude, I watched you score 40 in a number of different ways. And it's not, again, like, really good basketball players like KJ, you don't go into a game. Yes, there's an element as a point guard, like, get guys involved, all that stuff. But you still have to think to yourself, if I come off a ball screen, I'm looking to score every time. Every single time. It's attack, it's get downhill, it's look to score. It's just going to make the game easier for you, because then you're going to get an actual pull from the defense. If you continue to be the guy that is not even remotely looking for your shot, the defenses are going to adjust accordingly, and then you're going to find it's more difficult to facilitate. So doing more is going to make it easier on himself. It's not going to make it harder on him. So he's got to figure that out, and he's got to just adopt that mindset, because there's going to be big games, like you said. I mean, late game, who's it going to be?
Yeah.
I think the ball's going to be in his hands, and if it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 on the clock, last 10 seconds of a game, and you got a team like, if he comes off a ball screen, he's looking to pass.
Yeah.
There's going to be there's going to be no options. So we had a rule when we played against Spike Albrecht when he was in Michigan. It was called the Spike rule. And when Spike came off a ball screen, everyone stayed home, because more times than not, he was coming off a ball screen to make a pass, to get somebody else involved. And there's teams that could implement that rule. Hey, if he comes off, just stay home. Completely stay home. And I think you play the Bamas, you play Tennessees. He can't be a guy that's like, wait, oh shoot, I forgot he's been out there for 5 minutes. Like, he's got to be impactful. I think he's ahead of schedule from what I thought defensively, for sure. But offensively, like, you can't go in like, hey man, I got to get 12 assists every night. It's whatever the defense gives you, right? But you also dictate that with your aggression, getting downhill and moving the defense and manipulating the defense, which is what we saw from him in all this film that we watched in the offseason. So, and then you'll get to the free throw line more. and he's a really good free throw shooter.
He does better than anybody in the country right now. His free throw.
Exactly. So like, yeah, I mean, I think it's only going to improve. I think we'll look at these first couple games as like, remember when he just wasn't being aggressive? And I think in these, like sometime in the next 5 to 6 games, he's going to have a 20+ point night. I think he will. But the combination of being aggressive offensively and getting to the free throw line, it's right there on the table for him.
Yeah, 10 shot attempts in the first 3 games, only 2 from inside the arc so far. So I'm just interested to see how that evolves. Sweater weather pairs perfectly with savory fall foods, but with your busy schedule, sometimes it's hard to eat the way you'd like to. That's where Factor comes in. Their chefs do the shopping and chopping to bring you fresh, never frozen, fully cooked meals right to your doorstep. All you have to do is heat and eat. All their meals are dietitian approved, so you know you're getting the nutrition you need along with the fall flavors that you crave. And when it comes to meals, everyone wants the same thing, options. That's why Factor offers 35 wholesome meals every week, including Gourmet Plus, Keto, Calorie Smart, Vegan, and Veggie, so you'll always find something you love that suits your lifestyle. And there's more to Factor than just lunches and dinners. From easy breakfasts and smoothies to delectable midnight snacks, Factor has over 60 plus add-ons that keep you fueled and focused 24/7. And with a plethora of flavors, you'll never get bored. This fall, you've got a lot going on outside the kitchen, so keep your plans and turn to Factor. They deliver fresh, nutritious, chef-prepared meals ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So head to factormeals.com/Illini50 and use code Illini50 to get 50% off your first box and 20% off your next month. That's code Illini50 at factormeals.com/Illini50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. All right, Mike. Huge challenge next, and I can't wait for it. Number 2, Alabama in Birmingham on Wednesday night, 8 o'clock tip-off. Huge challenge. What is the biggest challenge for Illinois against the Crimson Tide, who returned a couple huge starters from last year, Mark Sears, Grant Nelson, bringing all the transfers, including Cliff Omaruri, and really good freshman class as well.
Yeah, I mean, you look at who they brought in. I mean, they brought in so many good guys that a guy that was averaging 18 points a game at Pepperdine had to redshirt. That's how good this roster is. And you even got a guy that came from South Florida in Youngblood that would probably be getting, I don't know about starters minutes, but he'd certainly be in the rotation. It's not even playing for them right now because he'll be, injured until December or January, whatever it ends up being. So super talented, obviously, but the pace that they play with is just, it's out of this world. It's part of the reason why they get to the free throw line so much. Just their speed, it gets you out of position, gets you on your heels. Teams are fouling. They're shooting 35 free throws a game. So put that in context, right? They've shot 105 free throws in their 3 games, and that doesn't even count the exhibition they played against Memphis where they shot 48. So this has been a real trend over 4 games, and part of it is just, it's where you're at with your positioning. It's how you're guarding the actions that they're running. I mean, Cliff Omaruri we've seen it over the last 4 years, a real rolling threat to the rim that's been able to unlock, I think, some of their outside shooting, although they haven't shot it particularly well. They're 30% from 3. But your quality of shot offensively is uber important because your transition defense is top of the list. Right. And if you're taking bad shots where you're not in rebounding position, you're not giving yourself a chance to get another one back on the glass, and you're given just runouts, bad shots can be like the first outlet pass. I mean, we've heard that over the years. And if you're allowing Alabama to do that, this game could get ugly. So you got to be aggressive offensively. You got to be confident offensively, but you can't play stupid offensively against this team. Like, this is a team that can run you out of the gym. So that's what I'm curious. I mean, it's a really, really big test. And I'll be curious to see how they defend without fouling, how they guard in transition, and what their quality of shot looks like against a team of this caliber.
So, Mike, we're going to get real here. After Alabama, it's 2 more bye games, but then Alabama's the first of 6 high major opponents before Christmas. What do you kind of expect with this next month? How should Illinois fans approach this over the next month?
I mean, I'd expect ups and downs. Right. I mean, you look at that schedule and it's like, all right, can we keep up offensively with the Alabamas of the world? Like, are we in that tier yet as an offense? And then also, How do you guard a team like that, right? And then can you fare well against really tough defenses? Because I know what Tennessee's going to do. They're going to get into you. They're going to, it's like Kai Ziegler's going to pick you up full court. Is Kasparas ready for that? Can he handle that? Kylin, obviously, that's a big moment for him to step up and add some help there. And then, you play a team like Northwestern that we know they're going to trap. How do you deal with the trap? Can you limit the turnovers? Like, I think that was something that crept back into this game against Oakland just because of the second guessing. And, hey, who's cutting there? Is nobody cutting? Is this gap an actual gap for me to attack? And so that's what I'm looking for is you get kind of both ends of the spectrum. Really, really talented offenses you're playing and really, really talented defenses. And then where do you stack up? Last year, we remember the stretch in December, which was Rutgers, FAU, then Tennessee. And I think we talked about in the podcast, we're like, can you go 2-1 here?
Mm-hmm.
Right, that's the goal. And they did. They did that. And really, they had a great showing in the first half against Tennessee.
Sure.
And could have feasibly gone 3-0. Now you look at this 6-game stretch before Christmas. Can you go 4-2? Right? Because if you go 4-2, you're no doubt adding a few quality wins to your resume with the likes of Bama. You're talking about Arkansas and Tennessee, Northwestern, Wisconsin, all these different teams. I'm excited because I think we're just going to learn, just like last year, it was, hey, we're going to learn a lot about this team because they were so new, but that was an older team that could go on the road, that could go away from home and take care of business. And can this team do that at this, as one of the younger teams in college basketball?
I think that's a really fair expectation, Mike, of the talent. They should go 4-2, right? But with the youth and the newness, like you kind of put in a couple of losses there. But I think Alabama is one of the toughest tests of their season. I've kind of chalked that one up as you learn a lot about yourself. If you win it, awesome, right? But
I think they beat Purdue tonight.
Yeah, right, at Purdue, which Mackey's one of the toughest places in the country to play. So I kind of chalked that one up as a loss. I love their offense against Arkansas. Like they can guard, but Arkansas struggles to score. So I kind of like Illinois in that one. Then I think Tennessee is just a toss-up game. You're at home. That team lost some guys, but obviously it brought some guys back. And then, the Big Ten games to me are just as telling because Northwestern and Wisconsin got some experience, right? They kind of these older teams that can grind you a little bit. So I just think I can't wait to learn a lot more about this team and watch them grow and watch them develop.
I think they're going to be favored against Arkansas, and I think they're going to be home dogs against Tennessee.
Makes sense.
That would be my guess. And I don't think it's going to be a crazy margin by any means, but that's kind of my feel for those games. And I'll be curious, right? Like, remember when Arizona came to town a few years ago? Trent Frazier gets the and one in the first half. They go up 16, and it's like, man, this team is. And then Kirk Ariza goes nuts in the second half, and you end up losing the game. It's like those types of games where you got to sustain effort for a full 40 minutes because these teams are just too good. Like these Alabama, Tennessee, I maybe wouldn't throw Arkansas in this category, but Alabama and Tennessee for sure can win the game in a 5-minute span.
Mm-hmm.
Can go on a 12-0 run, can go on a 14-0 run because they can guard, and that's something that Alabama wasn't doing last year. But Cliff Amore, you put him as an anchor back there. Grant Nelson can protect the rim pretty well, and the offense is still top 10 in the country. So that's when you get both of those things, like the margin for error is so small. And like I said at the top of the show, who can you trust?
Yeah.
That's what I'm most looking forward to against Alabama is like, who does Brad really trust? Because those are going to be the guys that are on the floor, that are playing big minutes, that, at the under 4 media, at the end of the game, who is it, right? Does he trust Will Riley at this point to be in there, like at the end of the game? Or is it, hey, go with the older guy, Trey White, or is it go with both of them? Who comes out of the starting lineup? That's the stuff I'm fascinated by because it shows you early on in the season who Brad's rolling with.
And I thought Kylin playing 35 minutes the other night was pretty
Kylan's going to play. I'm telling you right now, Kylin, like the way he's guarding right now, Kylin is going to be on the floor.
Yeah. What's this next week of practice like leading into Arkansas, Mike? Like, what do you think they're focused on? What do you think the keys are?
Transition defense. Or at least it should be. I don't know if that's exactly what they're doing, but for this team, like you want to make sure, because that was, if you think about it, like that was an area that team struggled with last year. That Illinois team, like they part of it, obviously, they struggled at times in the half court defensively, but their transition defense at times was not great. And can you be better on that end this year? And you're going to have just the ultimate test against a team like Alabama for a young team, right? Are you communicating, pointing, talking, passing guys off? When the shot goes up, where are you positioned on the floor? And I think against Alabama, right, if you're above the free throw line extended, get your ass back. Like, get back. And then when you're back, you're the one that has the responsibility to bark out orders to everybody. Like, hey, Will, you're here. You got, LeBaron Philon. Hey, Tomislav, take Cliff Murray running down the court. Like, there has to be communication. There has to be talk. There has to be a cohesiveness on that end, or else, I think what you do offensively won't matter if you don't have that buttoned up.
Feels like college basketball season is officially here with some of these games coming up, Mike, right?
Honestly, in the beginning of the NFL season, it was like that first, whatever it was, Packers Eagles, I think, to start. No, it was Chiefs. It was the Chiefs played in the opener, and I was just kind of like, or Chiefs Ravens to start the season. I'm like, I don't know if I'm like ready for this. Yeah. It feels like it's all happening too fast. There's one less preseason game now, and then now you don't even have these exhibition tune-ups. It's like right into Illinois, Ole Miss, and then the season's rolling. And I think first week I was kind of on my heels. I'm ready now. Yeah. I think I'm ready for sure.
Okay. We're excited about it, Mike. We'll catch up again next week as we learn a lot more about Illinois as they go down and play Alabama. Mike LaTulip, you're the goods. Thanks as always, man.
Sounds good, man.